Hello, Merry Christmas, welcome back. Today in The Greatest Gift, we are on December 9th, Never Undone. Today's reading. One day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him. The brothers killed a young goat and dipped Joseph's robe in its blood. They sent the beautiful robe to their father with this message: "Look at what we found. Doesn't this robe belong to your son?" Their father recognized it immediately. "Yes," he said, "it is my son's robe. A wild animal must have eaten him. Joseph has clearly been torn to pieces." But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. "Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong that we did him," they said. So they sent this message to Joseph: "Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, 'Please forgive your brothers for the great wrong that they did you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of the God of your father, beg you to forgive our sin.'" When Joseph received this message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. "Look, we are your slaves," they said. But Joseph replied, "Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many." Genesis chapter 37, verses 3 and 4, and 31 through 33, and chapter 50, verses 15 through 20. There's a storming mess this side of heaven. There's this rising muck, and there's all of us. And there's this simultaneous global choreography that unfolds on the world stage anyway. String up a tangle of lights. Set a musty angel atop the tree. Deck the front porch and the back streets, and the whole tilted world in this twinkling robe, this tinseled robe. Watch how it all spins in these lit colors. Yet, there is the robe's hem. There's always the bloody, dirty dragging. There's always the ripped underside of things, the dreams and bits of us and unspoken hopes torn to pieces. You can feel this in a torn-up world, being torn apart. When you are brave, you give yourself the gift of facing and touching the torn places. The places where we're torn to pieces can be the thin places where we touch the peace of God. Joseph touches this thin place. He feels along the edges of the torn places, and he sees through. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. What was intended to tear you apart, God intends it to set you apart. What has torn you, God makes a thin place to see glory. Whatever happens, whatever unfolds, whatever unravels, you can never be undone. You can stand around a Christmas tree with a family tree like Joseph's, with cheaters and beaters and deceivers, with a family like Jacob's, who ran away and ran around and ran folks down. But out of a family line that looks like a mess, God brings the Messiah. What was intended to harm, God intended all of it for good. And no matter what intends to harm you, God's arms have you. And you can never be undone. No matter what intends to harm you, God is never absent, never impotent, never distant. You can never be undone. In the middle of all our collective mess stands the most monstrous evil. The wood of the creche lies torn apart behind the wood of the cross. The cries of the innocent babe under the stars of Bethlehem twist into the agonizing cries of the innocent victim atop the injustice of Calvary. The holy dark over the manger gives way to the heinous dark over the Messiah, and the slamming hammer, and the tearing vein, and the piercing thorn, the created murdering the Creator. The cross stands as the epitome of evil. And God takes the greatest evil ever known to humanity and turns it into the greatest gift you will ever know. If the worst things work for good to a believer, what shall the best things? Writes Puritan Thomas Watson. Nothing hurts the godly. All things shall co-operate for their good, that their crosses shall be turned into blessings. If God can transfigure the greatest evil into the greatest gift, then he intends to turn whatever you're experiencing now into a gift. You cannot be undone. Somewhere, Advent can storm and howl, and the world robed for Christmas can spin on. You, there on the edge, whispering it, defiant through the torn pieces, all is grace. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, "A prison cell in which one waits, hopes, and it completely dependent on the fact that the door of freedom has to be opened from the outside, is not a bad picture of Advent." Anne Voskamp asks us to reflect, when have you seen God take what was torn and turn it into a gift? What evils are you experiencing now that you need God to transform into something good? And in what areas of your life do you feel like you're coming unraveled? What would it feel like to have your Heavenly Father slip a robe of righteousness over your shoulders? That concludes our reading for today. As always, go check out the description. The song that I've recommended and attached today is one of my favorites. It doesn't quite feel like Christmas without listening to that one, so I hope you enjoy. Have a good rest of your day. Merry Christmas.